name is Josephine Lee. My work is predominantly informed by my lifetime of moving through and between the United States, Canada, and South Korea. I examine ideas surrounding how we are physically and psychically impacted through cultural assimilation and naturalization through migration. I, in particular, am interested in how notions of home and belonging are constructed and how they are then in turn entangled within broader narratives of race and nationalism. A lot of my work pulls from a historical moment or place, and I use that as a point of reference for examining present-day social, political, and cultural conditions. I use whatever materials and methods that serve my work best, which can range from ceramics to weaving, glasswork, and performance. I like working in parts, putting a lot of time into figuring out what material, shape, or gesture is necessary for a piece, and then pulling all the elements together in a space to see how they interact with one another. I imagine these as open-ended invitations for the viewer to puzzle over and pull their own conclusions from. I think that's what compels my work the most. It's this notion of a poetic proposal, that the work not only has something to say, but says it in a sort of visual verse. And so the empty space within a work, however that manifests itself, is something that's important for me to keep in order to allow for and encourage interpretation. In addition to these narratives that complicate history and current lived experience, these days a lot of my work fixates around the transcultural precarity of immigrant families and how materials and gestures can reconfigure our connections and understandings to the idea of place and placelessness. In Kirogi, wild geese, which is also the term used to describe contemporary Korean transnational families, water acts as a portal and the body transforms through its search for the signifier of maternal and paternal belonging. And through that journey, the body experiences dislocation, precarity, and cultural yearning. I like working with minimal elements, displacing the familiarity of its function or structure so that these things that we think we know can shed the limitations and restrictions that we place on them and become what they really are, which are oftentimes complex and unknowable. In the work, I Know I Canada, I specifically wanted to bring forth ideologies of Canadian nationhood, which are particularly land, language, and multicultural bodies. The performance reinforces the psychic and physical tensions and exhaustions of legibility and confronts the tenuous nature of cultural and national belonging and unbelonging. In Deutsche Seesaw, I explore ideas of yearning, futility, and generational trauma. One common folkloric origin of the seesaw, out of several, is that it would have been used by Korean women who were otherwise not permitted to go outdoors. And it's cited that they used this apparatus as an acceptable form of recreation, as well as to see beyond the confines of their walls. In this work, I use it as a way to frustrate its function and confront the position of the gendered and racialized subject. I think much of my work holds a measure of humor, or at the very least an element of the nonsensical. There's a break in logic or rationality that I enjoy creating. And through this repetition of gesture or the combination of objects that would otherwise never interact with one another, I somehow enjoy that strange playfulness that arises from that. For the work Home Video Coney Island, I wanted to recreate a non-existent home movie that took place in an amusement park to confront the manufactured site of family, leisure, and entertainment. Putting myself through very specific gestures of watching and being watched, the work highlights the awkwardness of being in such a place alone and the status of my own immigrant and tourist body. So through all of these works and my current research, there is an uninterrupted desire to translate and transform historical, material, and cultural signifiers in a kaleidoscopic narrative of transculturation, nationalism, and notions of home.